The one and only Richard Oliver joining us again. Richard, always a pleasure.
Oh, great to be here.
Spurs on the road now, going to take on the Miami Heat tomorrow night. But before we dive into that game, let's revisit Sunday night's game against the Magic.
We have to?
I'm making you, yes. Orlando came into that contest with the lowest offensive production in the league, yet the Spurs allowed 117 points in their 117-110 loss. My question to you, where were the breakdowns in the Spurs defense Sunday night?
You know, it's interesting. The Magic actually came in, as you said, not that great offensively, and boy, they just buried three-pointers like crazy. And sometimes you run into a team. I think the Spurs were a little lax mentally. You know, after the win over the Pelicans on Saturday night, which I thought was kind of a showcase game for the Spurs, you know, with some really good Pelicans players coming in. The next day, they just seemed like they just didn't have it. They came out flat, and once the Magic kind of got in a roll like any other NBA team, once they found that rhythm, the Spurs just could not combat it. Nice little run at the end, so there's something they could build on at least, you know, that they did show a little fight there at the end of the game, but I think just mentally the Spurs just didn't have it that night. DeMar
DeRozan had definitely had it that night, another 25-point game for him. That's his fifth straight game with at least 25 points or more. He's been terrific for them all season long so far. How is he going to be able to affect the Spurs down the line if he continues this offensive production?
Well, the Spurs obviously, and all the Spurs fans are hoping he can sustain that, you know, because one of the things that's really interesting now about this is a brand new system for the Spurs. I mean, nobody has seen this Spurs team before. And what's interesting about it, Jill, is, you know, when you talk about DeMar DeRozan and what he's been able to do, I'm looking forward to the second and third time through when teams face a DeMar DeRozan in this system. How do they stop him? Or do they let him be like Kobe Bryant used to be with the Lakers? Let him have his 40. Let's just stop everybody else. You know, how are they going to combat the Spurs down the stretch? That's going to be very interesting. But as far as DeRozan goes, as we talked about last week, I really appreciate the fact that mentally he is focused on proving a lot of people wrong. He's focused on doing on being something special with this team, that he understands what his role is, and his role is put that team on his shoulders and carry him for as long as he can. I look for him to be pretty strong for a long time because he seems to be one motivated individual.
Wednesday at Miami Heat 4-5 on the season, coming off a big overtime win, though, that snapped a 3-game losing skid. What do the Spurs need to do to come out on top Wednesday night?
Well, you know, even except for the Sunday night hiccup, the Spurs had really looked very good defensively. They kind of starting to find their footing defensively. I'm looking to see if they could do that, looking forward to see if they could do that on the road in kind of a hostile situation. Even, you know, the roles have changed, the teams have changed, the rosters have changed. It's still Spurs and Heat. There's still a little cachet to that. I think it's going to be very interesting to see if the Spurs can maintain their defensive identity, which they've kind of found. And now, if we look at those kind of things, especially even going to the Rockets game this weekend, looking down the road at the schedule, if the Spurs can play the kind of defense, just marginally better defense, in addition to what they're doing on offense, this is going to be a fun ride. It's going to be a lot more fun than a lot of people give it credit for being this year.
Speaking of their defense, Josh Richardson for the Heat averaging 21.4 points per game. He leads the team in points per game. How do the Spurs slow him down tomorrow night?
Well, I think what they do is what they've been doing with a lot of scores is they put a lot of different looks at them. They're just going to come at them in waves. And what's been kind of interesting is the Spurs have done a great job, and they've done a better job week after week of just kind of rotating on defense, you know, having somebody in somebody's face all the time. It's actually worked very well. Again, before the Orlando went on their three-point barrage, you know, the other night, couldn't miss from three-point. The Spurs had done a great job of doing that. Every time a player turned around, every time your top scorer turned around, somebody's in their face. The Spurs have really kind of come on to that, look for that to happen quite a bit in this ballgame.
Richard, thank you so much.
No, my pleasure.